Every day, including today, some Western hypocritical feminists should be ashamed of their silence on the horror that Hamas men inflicted to women and girls on 7 October. And that includes big names we were once proud of. Why are their lips sealed and their hearts of stone when it comes to the excruciating pain of Jewish women?
Asita Kanko is a parliamentarian in the European Parliament, representing Belgium. She was born in West Africa in Burkina Faso, and she was originally raised a Muslim and was subjected to atrocities as a child, like forced marriage and genital mutilation. She eventually made her way to the West. And here is an incredible clip of her calling out the hypocrisy of those in the West who call themselves liberals, who were not speaking up for the Israeli women and girls who were raped on October 7th. Have a look.
I have a question, a pressing question for some Western feminists. How can you remain silent when women and girls are raped, tortured, their bodies carried around naked and spat on by bearded men shouting Allah Akbar? Then you can never call yourself a feminist again. Every day, including today, some Western hypocritical feminists should be ashamed of their silence on the horror that Hamas men inflicted to women and girls on 7 October. And that includes big names we were once proud of. Why are their lips sealed and their hearts of stone when it comes to the excruciating pain of Jewish women? The Me Too movement and so-called intersectional feminists do not care about all women. If they remain silent, it means they have lied to us about their commitment to women's rights. Their actions support the oppressor, not the victims. Also, the EU money does, indirectly. Those who say nothing about these women and the hostages should not be standing here and speaking about human rights. When you are under attack by terrorists, a ceasefire is like raising your hands when you are being shot at. Perhaps it's worth considering that a real lasting ceasefire will start with bringing back all the hostages to their homes and the rapists to justice.
So there you have it, calling out the hypocrisy of feminists, liberals in the West who were not speaking up on behalf of the Israeli female hostages who were being sexually abused daily while in captivity. And of course, the Israeli women who were mutilated and killed on October 7th, who were part of those rapes. Now, I want to talk about those rapes on October 7th. There's a phenomenal report that came out just last year. It took a lot of time to gather all the evidence and from testimonials. It's put out by an organization called the Dinah Project, or Dinah Project, named after the biblical character Dinah, who was victim of a rape. And you can go to the dinahproject.org and check that out. You can download the whole report there for those people who you might meet who claim that these rapes didn't happen, or that because there were those on the left who were trying to cover for Hamas. All of the evidence is there, a very important report to look at. But I want to talk more about when Asita Kanko mentioned that bearded men shouting Allahu Akbar committing these rapes, and the Muslim aspect of the rapes on October 7th is a very important piece of the story. You know, people might think that these rapes, as being part of the atrocities committed on October 7th, is that you have violent guys murdering with their guns, and they're having a good time, and maybe they let their animal instincts get the better of them. But what a lot of people don't know, and this is in the Dinah Project, it's mentioned, what a lot of people don't know is that that rape is actually part of Muslim conquest. It's part of jihad. Let me explain what I mean. First of all, Hamas's charter, let's just start there. The charter of the Hamas organization actually calls for the death of all Jews in the world. It doesn't call for a Palestinian state. It doesn't call for a two-state solution. It calls for the death of all Jews in the world, and it cites the Hadith, the Islamic holy text, calling for the death of all Jews. Now, after October 7th, when the Israeli soldiers were in Gaza and they were doing house-to-house searches, and among the things they found were documents, and they found fatwas, Islamic rulings given by imams in the Gaza Strip to the Hamas guys who were going to be carrying out October 7th, telling them that they are supposed to kill civilians and raping women is not only permitted, but is part of jihad. They specifically mention in these fatwas stripping the female soldiers, these female Israeli soldiers, to humiliate them is permissible. These were Islamic rulings given to the perpetrators of October 7th. Now, I want to give even more context to this. In October of 2014, when ISIS was still a big thing, ISIS published an issue of its magazine, Dabiq, in which it quoted Islamic authorities and stated, quote, this is a quote from this magazine, enslaving the families of the non-believers and taking their women as concubines, meaning as sex slaves, is firmly established in Sharia, meaning it is permissible. And in December 2014, a few months later, they released a pamphlet. And in that pamphlet, it said the following, and this was instructions to ISIS terrorists, to ISIS operatives who would be conquering infidels as they swept across the areas that ISIS ended up conquering, mostly in Iraq and Syria. And here's what it said, and this is December 2014, quote, "It is permissible to have sexual intercourse with the female captive. Allah the Almighty said, 'Successful are the believers who guard their chastity except from their wives, the captives and slaves that their right hands possess, for then they are free from blame.'" In other words, besides having sex with your wife, you are allowed to have sex with your captives and slaves that you have captured in war. And this is based on the Quran. This is a quote from the Quran, Surah 23, verses 5 and 6. The pamphlet goes on to say the slave woman has no rights and that the owner is bound to respect. So here's the exact quote. Quote, "It is permissible to buy, sell, or give as a gift female captives and slaves, for they are merely property which can be disposed of as long as that doesn't cause the Muslim ummah, the Muslim nation, any harm or damage." Okay, and this all applied even to girls who were prepubescent if they were physically capable of sexual relations, because it says there, it is permissible to have intercourse with the female slave who hasn't reached puberty if she is fit for intercourse. However, if she is not fit for intercourse, then it is enough to enjoy her without intercourse. You understand? This is written in 2014 in a pamphlet for ISIS terrorists. Now, you might be wondering, what does ISIS have to do with October 7th? Well, it matters because Hamas and ISIS are both offshoots. They're both branches and birthed out of the same organization. Let me explain. Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas, founded Hamas with the help of Abdallah Azzam. That was his teacher. He was a highly influential Islamic thinker who was affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, Hamas was originally founded as the Gaza chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Azzam was also known as the father of global jihad. He was the mentor of Osama bin Laden. He also helped him create Al-Qaeda. So Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Hamas are really all offshoots of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're all based on the same teachings, the teachings of Abdullah Azzam and a guy by the name of Sayyid Qutb, who was the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, the sign above the door on the Hamas military academy in Gaza, which is it's been destroyed in the war, but it read, "Welcome to the Dr. Abdullah Azzam Academy." So this guy, Abdullah Azzam, this Muslim Brotherhood, this Muslim Brotherhood cleric, who is it's his ideas that inspired Al-Qaeda, it's his ideas that inspired ISIS, it's his ideas that inspired Hamas. They're all coming from the same place. So what you have to understand about these rapes and these sexual atrocities that took place on October 7th is that they weren't just some guys behaving badly. This was actually part of the plan. This is part of what Islam dictates to its jihadist warriors, its mujahideen, that they are supposed to do. This is a barbaric religion. We're talking about documents written in our day and age advocating for mass rape. So when we talk about the problems of Islam and the problems of jihad today, this is not a political issue. This is far more serious than that.